guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're working on a 2022 Tesla Model S, and we're going to be installing a set of these intuitive control arms. And these control arms allow us to adjust the camber on the rear suspension of the Model S. So you can see there's an adjustment here that'll allow us to adjust positive or negative camber. And the reason we're doing this is this car has about 70,000 miles on it now, but it's wearing the inside edges of the rear tires really bad. So it's going through tires really quickly, and that's a sign that we've got too much negative camber. And so by installing these new control arms, hopefully we can get this adjusted, get the tires wearing more evenly, and get a little bit more life out of them. All right, so step one is to remove the tire. We've got a 21mm socket. All right, so here is a look at the control arm that we're going to be replacing. We're going to start by loosening the two 16mm bolts that connect it to the subframe. So I've got a series of extensions here. Okay, so the front one's loose. And then for the rear bolt, I've added a swivel to my series of extensions. So I'll feed that here next to the shock absorber. And we should be able to get a straight shot onto the bolt. There we go. All right, so next up, we're going to loosen the large bolt at the wheel end of the control arm using a 21mm socket. All of the bolts broken loose, we'll go ahead and remove the bolts and then remove the control arm itself. And there we go. Let's look at the control arm. So you don't need to support the wheel. There's really no load on this at all once you have the vehicle on the jacks. So you just pull it out once you remove those 3 bolts. All right, so here is a close-up look at the new control arm. So one of the really nice things is that it has a gauge here that indicates how much longer or shorter the control arm is than the stock control arm. So 0 would be at the stock length. The way that this control arm was shipped, it's at about plus 5mm right now. We're going to go ahead and adjust it back to 0 to make the install easier. But then after we've got it installed, I'll adjust it back out to about positive 7mm. And according to the paperwork that came with the control arm, that should get us really close to the ballpark for the correct camber once we take it into the alignment shop. To make the adjustment, I've loosened both of these bolts. So we have a T30 and an 8mm Allen key. So I've loosened both of these, and that allows us now to spin the collar and also spin the control arm adjustment bolt here. So I'll go ahead off camera and spin this until we come back to 0mm, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so as I'm making this adjustment, I thought I would show you guys what it looks like. So the control arm actually comes with a really nice 30mm wrench. And so the way you do this is we spin the collar out of the way. We don't want it to hit our gauge. And then we'll use our 30mm wrench, and we can simply adjust the nut here. And that's making it shorter. So I'm rotating that counterclockwise, and that's actually making it shorter. Spin the collar back around. Rotate the nut here again. Just keep this collar out of the way. And you can see I'm almost at 0mm already. So just a few turns. So at this point, we're ready to install our new control arm. So I'll just feed this in the same way that the old one came out. Okay. I'm going to start by reinstalling the large bolt here on the wheel end of the control arm. I'll go ahead and get that bolt started. And because we've adjusted this control arm to be the same length as the original one, we can see that our bolt holes are actually lining up pretty nice here. So everything's just falling right into place. And then we can install our bolts back into the subframe. Now that we have all of the bolts snug, we'll go ahead and do our final torquing. So the 16mm bolts at the subframe will be torqued to 63 foot-pounds. And the 21mm bolt here at the wheel end of the control arm will be torqued to 111 foot-pounds. And I should mention, normally when you're doing control arms with bushings, you want to load the suspension before torquing the bolts. On this particular design, there's no need to load the suspension with the design of this bushing that's used at the wheel end of the control arm. All right, so the next step is to use the supplied wrench, rotate the adjustment nut here, and lengthen the control arm to about 7mm based on the gauge measurement here at the side. And that will give us a really good starting point for the alignment. So we'll just reach in here and we can simply rotate the adjustment nut. And again, we'll want to keep our collar out of the way. So this will take a few turns, but shouldn't take too long. All right, so we have the control arm extended to 7mm. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten up this black collar using our T30 Torx drive. And there is a torque spec, I think it's around 15 foot-pounds, but this is a pretty tight space. It's gonna be pretty hard to get a torque wrench in here. So I'm just using a little 1/4-inch drive ratchet, and we'll just tighten this up by feel. There we go. Next up, I'm going to tighten the other pinch bolt. Torque spec on this bolt is 42 foot-pounds. Again, pretty tight to get in here with the torque wrench, so I'm going to use just a 3/8 ratchet and tighten this one by feel as well. So 42 foot-pounds is pretty tight, about as tight as I'm going to get with this short 3/8 ratchet. There we go. All right, so the last step is to put the wheel back on. And we'll finish up by torquing these wheels to 129 foot-pounds. All right, so there you have it, wheels back on the car. Pretty easy job overall, I would say a couple of hours total for both sides, and you should be good to go. I do want to mention, we did mess with the suspension settings here. The next step really is to drive this to the local alignment shop, have them do a full alignment, so getting the toe and the camber set. So as we've adjusted the camber out, just visually looking at it, it does look like the toe is a bit out now as well. So definitely take it into your local alignment shop, get an alignment done, but now we do have full adjustability of both camber and toe, so should be able to get the alignment right into spec with no problems. If you enjoyed the content, please do subscribe.